the whole situation here. Is it time to break up the Jays? I'm going to say no. And despite that tough series that they had, Jayson Tatum with 25 points, 10 rebounds, 5.4 rebounds. Jaylen Brown with 19 points, six rebounds, and 3.4 assists. You're looking at this team that have two guys who are 25 and 26 respectively. Jaylen Brown's up for the Supermax with the All NBA second selection that he made. And people are now running around saying, hey, it's time to break them up. It hasn't worked, whatever the case may be. And I'm going to say to hell with those people. Right? Because these guys have gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals, and of course, there's no participation trophies or anything like that. But there's obviously a level that these guys can play together, right? They've shown that last season. They've shown it this season where they're able to take their games to a different level. But there's another level in terms of creation, playmaking for others around them that I think both of these guys need to make. Both of these guys had turnovers in this series. I believe Jayson Tatum had 26, Jaylen Brown had 25. Glaring turnovers for Jaylen in Game 7, where it seemed like he couldn't go left. Miami just swiped at the ball every time. Just put your hand in there. You're gonna poke it loose. So those are things that the Celtics need to work on. Creation, especially the Jays, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Creation for others. Jayson Tatum has been able to do that in high pick and roll situations and at certain points of the season when he's able to pass. And there's no doubt in my mind that would have been the go-to plays in Game 7, where we would have gave the ball to Jayson Tatum at the high pick and roll and move the ball, because Jayson Tatum at least creates a double team, at least creates some type of impact on that end. Jaylen Brown, to that degree, if he has it going, maybe he does that. But that's not his game. He's not going to be that creator, which we need him to be. And I feel like another level of his development that needs to come. But I'm not going to sit here and these guys both averaged 30 points and I believe 26 points respectively, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and have improved every season, right? Like they've gotten to the line more. They've rebounded more this season. They have been able to take over games this season. Throughout all of the highs and lows of the season and stuff like that, still one of the better teams in the league. Still one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. No, I don't think you break these guys up. I think there's another level roster-wise that you can figure things out. Maybe give them a little bit more depth health in terms of on the front court line. Other things like that. I'll speak into that. But in terms of breaking up the Jays, I'm not doing that, because when you look around the league, and especially let's just start with the Eastern Conference, you look at the Milwaukee Bucks situation with Giannis, whose contract is going to be up in a couple of years. Chris Middleton needs to be signed. Brook Lopez needs to be signed. Who knows what the Bucks are going to look like? You move down the line, Philadelphia. We don't know the situation with James Harden, but it just appears that we have Philadelphia's number, right? Nick Nurse is going to come in. He's the new coach for them. I still think we're better than Philadelphia. Look at Cleveland with Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, those two bigs, and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. They're a couple years away, I think, as we saw in the Knicks series. Before taking another step, the Knicks are probably potentially the guys that can make a big time move and make a trade or something that happened. They were able to build off last season, actually advancing to the second round. Have some stability there with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, whatever they're going to do with him. I believe I just saw they're going to looking to part ways with their GM, so that's going to be interesting, especially with Bob Myers recently just leaving Golden State, stepping down from Golden State. I'll make another video about that probably towards the offseason. But looking down the line, it's like I don't see any other team here in the Eastern Conference that can really compete with the Jays on that level. And that's an opportunity for this team to look to get better, improve on certain situations. But Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown both have another level to go to. Is that another level that I feel like is capped in Boston or can't be reached? No, because these guys have made strides every season. They've gotten stronger. They have worked on their bodies. Now I think there's just a development in terms of playmaking, creation, watching film. Of course, these guys watch film, but I'm just talking about an ability to make things easier for other guys around them. And maybe this is not even a conversation if they get to the finals, right? Like if they get to the finals, this is not a conversation. If they don't go down 3-0, this is not a conversation. If they didn't lose to the Miami Heat, this is probably not a conversation, right? But because the way it happened and the way they lost and the way they went out, now it's becoming a conversation. People are saying all these trades for Jaylen Brown and all this other stuff. Let me get into that point. People are wary of paying Jaylen Brown $50 million or whatever the supermax is for him over the next couple of years. And the NBA salary cap is obviously going to go up, but the CBA has done something where the aprons for tax leverage and all that stuff come into play. And I'm like, I think there's going to be some changes there that people don't see in case of like what the rising cap aprons. Basically, there's a salary cap that teams have. If they go over the first apron, they pay penalties like 1.5 times whatever millions they are over the cap towards the league or whatever the case in tax and stuff like that. If they go over the second apron now, apparently in the new CBA, it limits their mid-level exception, meaning that they can offer, I think, $5 to $7 million in the offseason for free agents, veteran free agents. They can't do that anymore. They can't trade future draft picks into the future. They can't do that anymore, and they have to pay taxes on that. The taxes are insane, or whatever the case may be. People are criticizing Jaylen Brown, and of course, rightfully so with the turnovers, right? Like we saw this last season. It was like, hey, this was area of concern last year that we saw time and time again that piled up and was an issue. And he comes into this season, same thing happening, but the scoring takes off, the rebounding takes off, the offensive end of the floor for these guys take off, especially for Jaylen Brown to make that All NBA team selection, be one of an All-Star again. All these little cracking points that he reaches, all these benchmarks that he hits. And I'm fine with that, but I just feel like there's a development with now creation, handle, the ability to read defenses. We saw a lot of the times him run into a crowd and try to shoot the ball or take a bad shot or whatever the case may be, or when he's dribbling, trying to set up his move. We've seen it work countless times over the course of the season. And then in the playoffs, especially in Miami, people just swipe at the ball and steal the ball and create turnovers. That's something that's fixable, I believe, and that's just something that he needs to basically be able to read the plays better and get those situations to move the ball and understand that it's going to come back to you because you're one of the best players on the team. And now I'm hearing all these trades for Jaylen Brown. People are saying trade Jaylen Brown. I've heard DeMar DeRozan, people saying DeMar DeRozan. And I lost my mind at that because I'm like, we've seen DeMar DeRozan in Toronto. Great mid-range play over the course of the season. Efficient offensively. But in the playoffs, he does not show up at all. Like, we've seen it throughout time. It's kind of like that Paul George thing where people were kind of shitting on Paul George. And I'm like, Paul George has at least gotten to Eastern Conference Finals and done some things and has some body of work in the playoffs that I think people ignore a little bit. But DeMar DeRozan, people just said, yo, trade for DeMar DeRozan. And I'm like, well, have we seen this guy in the playoffs? Like, even in San Antonio, maybe that's not his offensive fit. But he had some series that he could have won in San Antonio, and I saw him continuously not try to take over. The reason why he got kicked out of Toronto, essentially, is because he didn't want to shoot the three. One year he shot the three, and it was good, and it looked like they were taking the next level, and then he reverted back to shooting the mid-range because that's what he's comfortable with, and that's fine. You know who you are, whatever the case may be. But the failure to evolution, to evolve your offense and take it to another level, I'm just saying. Like, I'm not going to trade for that. People said Bradley Beal because he's cool with Jayson Tatum. If I have to trade for Bradley Beal in his contract, he's played less games every season since the scoring title in Washington. If I have to trade for Bradley Beal to gain Jayson Tatum's confidence, we already lost Jayson Tatum. I'm just going to say that because I'm not trading for Bradley Beal and trading Jaylen Brown in the same conference for Jaylen Brown to take Washington to a different level and then to see Bradley Beal just be a friend, a little bit better fit next to Jayson Tatum because he could shoot the ball and certain things like that. I'm not doing that. And especially after the contract that he had, just signed a Supermax, get that Supermax to Jaylen Brown, in my opinion, if that's your best option. I've seen crazy things like people said LaMelo Ball, because that's going to be a point guard and be able to get everybody involved. That's an intriguing one, but the injury prone, the ability not to sustain that, his health, I would be hesitant to do that, and you're going to have to pay him anyway, regardless, right? And then what is that? What is your rest of your team? What is the next move in terms of the backcourt? of course you're going to try to keep Marcus Smart next to him, or whatever the case may be, or whatever trade with Charlotte, whatever that would happen. I'm just like, I'm not doing that. Now, people go to Portland, of course. They say Dame Lillard. People have flipped that and said, get the number 3 pick in Anthony Simons, and you're able to build. And it's like, yeah, Jayson Tatum's 25, and maybe there's a course of action there where you can kind of develop a point guard and have Anthony Simons as a guy score off the bench or a starter or whatever the case may be with that. But no. Like that's now setting back Tatum a little bit here, where you have to basically essentially grow whatever third person you're trying to pick, even Scoot Henderson or whatever the case may be like that, and figure out the rest of the roster. Like, no, I don't want to go backwards. I feel like that's a backwards move. Yeah, you're setting up for the future, but we've seen teams try to do that and it not work. So all these trade suggestions for Jaylen Brown, maybe the Anthony Simons and third round pick makes sense on paper in terms of, hey, we can reset, kind of reassess, maybe flip that third round pick, whatever the case may be. But it's like, Jaylen Brown's an all-star. Jaylen Brown's one of the better guards in the league. Yes, the turnovers are an issue, free throw shooting and stuff like that of that nature. But Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, we just need another level of development from those two guys, and I think we're going to get that. So in the case of trying to trade Jaylen Brown, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not for that. No, I don't want that at all. No, not at all. No, just sign Jaylen Brown and figure it out. If he wants to leave in 2-3 years, okay. Like, at least you try to give it another shot, try to pull this together and try to get to a championship with these two guys. I'm fine with that. That should be the answer. Sign Jaylen Brown, give it another 2-3 years, and then if he wants to leave or whatever the case may be, if it's that bad in Boston relationship-wise, then move on from him. But I'm not trading him for DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Bradley Beal, LaMelo Ball, Damian Lillard, Anthony Simons in this third-round pick. I'm not doing that. I just feel like that's not the move to make. And I feel like you're taking a step back to hopefully hope that this development happens with a potential player with Anthony Simons, if that's a better matchup. And it's like, defensively, what does that do for you, just thinking-wise? And offensively, does that make you a better team? I'm not sure about that.